Our final speaker brings a very important perspective to this discussion. Philip Stott is a long-standing CWI member of the CWI section in Scotland, former member of the Scottish Socialist Party, and now as well, of course, following the recent developments, which he will explain, of Solidarity, Scottish Movement for Socialism. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Philip, who has very kindly come to add to our discussion today.
Thanks, Joe. Comrades, I'd like to bring greetings from the CWI in Scotland to this event this weekend. And also I bring the greetings of Tommy Sheridan and Solidarity, Scotland's new socialist movement. I got a text message from him last night from Beirut, which is quite appropriate given the carnage that's unfolded in Scotland in the last few weeks. But he's there as part of an international delegation to witness the destruction carried out by the IDF in August. I think that it's clear from last night's meeting, from the discussions this morning and this afternoon, that the work of the Socialist Party in Ireland is of extreme importance given the political situation that exists in this country, and that the work that the CWI is carrying out across the world puts into context the real meaning of internationalism. That is the idea that our organisation has defended through difficult periods like the 1990s, the idea that the capitalist market and neoliberal policies represent a devastating attack on the rights and conditions of the working class. And I think that last night's debate, in which Joe very eloquently outlined what that means for the real lives of working class communities in Ireland, the devastating attacks that represents, is repeated in country after country, in continent after continent across the globe. And it's certainly the case in Scotland and in Britain as a whole that this massive transfusion of wealth from the working class to big business and the rich has been carried through apace. In the last 5 years in Britain, the wages of the top 100 companies' chief executives has increased by over 80% in 5 years. During that same 5-year period, the average wage rise of an average worker in Britain has gone up by 3.5%. It's those type of figures, those type of devastating impact of neoliberal policies that is creating the conditions for a massive wave of anger, of discontent and of action by the working class in Scotland and in Britain itself. Tony Blair has announced that he's stepping down as Prime Minister. It's expected that Gordon Brown, who lives not far from St Andrews actually, in Fife in Scotland, will replace him as Prime Minister. But we have to be clear, as far as that transfusion of power is concerned, it will represent nothing more than Blairism with a Scottish accent. Brown has already announced his intention to freeze the wages of public sector workers in Britain once he becomes Prime Minister, if that's what happens. Yesterday, they announced a 1.5% wage rise for nurses and NHS workers. Inflation currently is at 3.6%. That means that for NHS workers, they face a 2% wage cut next year. And that pay freeze, which is effectively a cut, is going to carry on. Now, Gordon Brown announced at the start of the Iraq conflict that he would be prepared to pay as much as it takes to get the job done in Iraq. That currently, the bill for the military intervention in Iraq by the British government stands at £4,000 million, £4 billion since the Iraq intervention. And it's absolutely clear with Brown's announcement that he intends also to spend £40 billion replacing the Trident missile system, that the type of policies that New Labour have carried out in Scotland and across Britain are going to continue as far as he is concerned. And I'll give you one other statistic to underline the massive profits being made by the rich and big business in Britain just now. Tesco's last month announced their half-yearly profits from January to July 2006, a profit of £1.1 billion for half a year. That's £170,000 in profit for every single worker who works with Tesco's. Now you can be sure that if you're stacking shelves in Tesco's or sitting on the checkout, you're not getting £170,000 a year in your wages. But what it does underline is the increasing neoliberal attacks on the majority in society are benefiting the rich and big business at our expense. And in a situation now in Britain where 6 out of every 10 workers is on less than £20,000 a year, it's those conditions that have erupted the anger of working class communities of trade unionists across the country. Now, in terms of the development and how that anger can be expressed politically, we have had positive and also negative experiences in Scotland in the last period. I'm glad to be able to bring news of the launch of Solidarity, Scotland's socialist movement, which is already having an important impact in relation to its launch, launched 2 months ago. It was launched at a rally of over 600 people in Glasgow. It has 2 MSPs, one of whom is Tommy Sheridan, who's quite a well-known figure on the left in Scotland. But it also now has the involvement of the open cast miners in Scotland, of the PCS, the Civil Service Union, the leadership of whom have come over en masse to join Solidarity. 90% of the active trade union forces who were in the Scottish Socialist Party have now joined Solidarity as well. And up and down the country, rallies are taking place of hundreds of workers coming to the meetings of Solidarity to discuss building and effectively rebuilding the socialist movement after the setbacks of the last period itself. And what I want to comment on in the few minutes I have left is to draw out some of the lessons of the setbacks that have engulfed the Scottish Socialist Party and why a new socialist movement has been launched with the support of the CWI itself. And I think that that's important because we need to draw out the lessons, not just of the potential to build new mass parties of the working class, but also the mistakes and also the setbacks that can face these new parties and new forces if there is not a correct leadership, if there is not a correct orientation to the working class, and if the programme of socialist ideas and Marxist ideas is not put to the fore as part of building these new formations. Now, when the SSP was launched in 1998, we welcomed all the steps forward that that party made. We joined it and we participated in the building of the SSP. At its high point in 2003, the SSP won 130,000 votes in Scotland in the Scottish general election. 6 MPs elected to the Scottish Parliament and 7% of the national vote in 2003. That represented an important step forward for the working class and socialist movement. The affiliation of the Rail Workers Union, led by Bob Crow, the RMT, agreed to affiliate to the SSP as well. And with a proper leadership, with a consistent socialist and Marxist leadership, it would have been possible to enormously strengthen the working class and socialist movement in Scotland. But we made the point, even then, even at the high point of the success of the SSP, that the policy of the leadership of that party was preparing problems and a potential catastrophe if they carried on down the road that they were proceeding along.